Please stand by.
Excuse me, I'm talking.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
What is your name?
I am Jay Ramone, and this is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
If the FCC knew you were doing drugs on the air, shut us down!
This gets more work done more accurately.
I will sit down with bands, artists, chefs, business owners, and fellow Oklahomans to talk about their projects and dealing with day-to-day life.
This stuff can give you brain damage.
This is the Jay Ramone Podcast.
The power of the internet is truly amazing.
So I have got Whitney Anderson from the Dragonfly home here in Oklahoma City, and this is the Jay Ramone Podcast. I was trying to be incognito and not reveal too much. I didn't know if you'd recognize it or not.
Yeah, no, you were fully recognized right off the bat. It didn't work. How have you been?
Good.
Just ask you how you've been, or do we need to jump right into business?
Oh no, we don't have to jump right in. No, okay. I've just been busy. Asked the guy who does our Sunday morning magazine show. It's a show that airs on all of our stations, and it's geared towards nonprofits is what it's
yeah,
for.
I think we've been on there.
You have. And so
okay.
I meant to ask him, but I was at an event with him and I said, "Hey, I've been meaning to ask you, have you had this organization on?" He was like, "Yeah, I have." And I was like, "Okay." And so I was going to get the ball rolling that way. Anytime you had events or whatever, he can, be involved. This is just my podcast. And, I used to interview artists and stuff all the time, but I would have to edit those interviews down to where they would be like a minute or 2 minutes. And that's all that would air. And I hated that because you couldn't have a real conversation.
Right.
Whereas now I can have a real conversation and I can upload the whole thing to YouTube and I can make clips and I can distribute the podcast to all of the platforms. And we promote it on the air. This is where you go hear it. And which it makes more sense, Well,
thank you for this opportunity. Yeah.
Oh.
I think that we get a lot where it's very like, tell us about trafficking in 2 seconds. And
that's impossible.
Yeah, I just can't. So I appreciate these opportunities for sure.
Whitney, I wanted to have you on because I was sitting at home and I was watching TV and the I Am Chickasaw spot comes on. And I said, I have got to reach out to Whitney and have her on my podcast.
Yeah, that was a dream come true, by the way. I've been a proud Chickasaw, and it's always been my dream that whatever I did in life would be important enough to be highlighted in that.
We've been to, I can't even begin to tell you how many Chickasaw events over the years as we were kids. So it's something that's been instilled in us from a very young age.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had the opportunity to grow up around people who too were proud of our heritage. And I don't know, it just feels surreal to have been highlighted in that way. And it feels like an honor to our family and to.
I guarantee you, your mom freaked out the first time she saw that. She called every friend, called you, guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, it was big. It was big to her, and it has meant a lot to really all of my family, and even has led to reconnections with more cousins in the family. So that's pretty cool.
So let's talk about the Dragonfly home and how this idea began.
Yeah, for sure. So I never planned on being a human trafficking victim advocate or even being in the victim services realm. I actually was getting my master's in business, and I was working in the corporate business world when all of a sudden there was this assignment, and it was about supply chain transparency and how businesses outsource the manufacturing of labor for like clothing and different things, different items that we purchase in the United States. And in that research, in that paper that I did, I discovered the issue of labor trafficking, and that slavery was not a thing of the past, that it was very much real and present and prevalent across the world. And I just was taken aback by this fact. I had been praying for kind of a change in my life to do something more meaningful. I was working in the corporate business world, and this was something that I wanted to take on. I didn't know what it looked like for sure. And it felt really daunting and huge, but just kind of breadcrumb after breadcrumb, I was given opportunities to work with survivors who resided in Africa at the time, start pioneering work here in Oklahoma City. And then a few years later, myself and 2 other women, we actually co-founded the Dragonfly Home, and that was in 2016.
Wow, it's that long ago.
It was a long time ago. Yeah. We're not a baby organization anymore, but
no, you're coming up on a decade now.
We're coming up on a decade, but this work is new across the world, and so we're very much building and pioneering services, like kind of building the plane as you're flying it. So there's a lot of challenges with that, and then we still live in really a state in a world that doesn't recognize that human trafficking is an issue close
You're
to
not
home.
wrong. You're not wrong.
So that's hard.
I bet it's hard. And I bet it makes you angry to constantly have to deal with this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
you and I were raised better, where we would get the backhand if we did some of these things. Like, where was the people backhanding these individuals when they needed it?
Yeah. So I feel like, there's been so much insight I've seen, and I've thought a lot about how I was raised and what our family members went through. Right. Mm-hmm. I think that ultimately I see kind of this trail of trauma on both sides in trafficking. And that looks like the perpetrators have been abused and the victims have been abused. And it just kind of is this perfect storm of horrific violations of human rights. So yeah, I wish it were as simple as a backhand. We could solve a lot of problems with that. But yeah, what we see at the Dragonfly Home, it's like we see every single day the worst of what human beings do to other human beings. Human beings are selling other human beings for profit, and that just grieves my heart.
It's sad because I feel like the people who are stuck in that world of being trafficked, I feel like they have no confidence to get out because they feel like this is the way it's always going to be. Yeah,
I mean, you pretty much summed it up. I think that a lot of the people that we serve at Dragonfly, whether they've been sex trafficked or labor trafficked, they feel dire hopelessness, like there is no way to escape. And that's because of how traffickers control victims. They make them feel like there is no other avenue. And if they try to escape, perhaps there might be retaliation from the trafficker, severe violence, lethal violence. They really feel like there is no way out. And so to meet people who are coming out of situations of hopelessness and hoping to provide avenues of hope for them to move forward is pretty freaking cool. I don't know if I can cuss on here.
You can, and it makes me really, really proud to know you.
Thank you. F-bombs incoming.
I told my mom when the commercial aired, I was telling her about what you were doing and stuff, and I thought she was going to cry, and she said, well, if there's anybody tough and mean enough to do it, it's Whitney. And I was like, you nailed it.
I'm passionate about people not being treated right.
Same.
And yeah, so I just, and that too, I think I talk about that in the commercial. I feel like that's a Chickasaw thing, and just a how I was raised kind of thing, that you stand up for people who aren't being treated right.
100%.
And so that's what this work is all day, every day. But that makes me, I love that.
I know it's not necessarily trafficking, but I've got this story about Jack Cale, my dad.
Yeah.
That this is one of the things, the core memories stuck in my head was you never hit a woman.
Yeah. I remember him saying that.
And I can't tell you how many times that I've seen him pull somebody aside who was beating up a woman, and he said, come do that to me.
Right.
And handled the situation right then. And that probably isn't the best way to do things, but it's also part of the reason I am how I am, because I saw that example of somebody beating up their wife, and then they get dropped right there on the floor. And he says, all right, let's go, son. Don't you ever hit a woman, and we move on down the line. But I feel like it was definitely a part of our upbringing to help other people get out of bad situations.
Yeah. And I love that. And honest to goodness, sometimes memories can be fuzzy, but as you said that, I was like replaying the different times in my head that I've heard him specifically say that. And that is just, I don't know, it means a lot in this moment. So you're right about that. You're putting puzzle pieces together.
So what was it that inspired you and your partners to start Dragonfly Home? Was there a situation or something that you saw that you felt like you needed to jump into action?
Yeah. So the three of us, we actually met at another nonprofit organization, and they were working with human trafficking victims in Oklahoma and also in Africa. And so when this organization decided to pivot and primarily focus on Africa, we all sat down in my living room and we were like, well, work needs to be done in Oklahoma. So we need to get something going. This is crazy AF. Like, how can we do this? How can we provide for ourselves? And how can we do this work and build an organization from scratch? Somebody's got to do it, because there are major gaps in Oklahoma. We have so many vulnerabilities here in Oklahoma that traffickers prey upon. And then we also have a demand for illicit sex and free and cheap labor. So we have people who need services, and people aren't receiving those services. So we just have to do it.
So what's the hardest thing for you guys to reach your goal? Is it funding? Is it getting people to pay attention to what you're saying? What's the biggest need?
Yeah, so it is a combination of those. So I think that human trafficking is a very complex crime. And I think that it's so hard and it's so heavy and egregious that a lot of people, once they hear about it, they just kind of want to turn away. And what I need is more people who hear the issue, understand that it's real, educate themselves, and then join us in this fight, because we need funding for sure. That people don't recognize that it's an issue here doesn't help when you're trying to fundraise, right? To provide the major services that human trafficking victims need when they come out of situations.
They have nothing.
No,
they have nothing.
Yeah, they come to us with nothing at all, nothing to their name, but then they also come to us with, what can look like 20 years of chronic complex trauma. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about, they've been victims of child sexual abuse, and they've been victims of domestic violence and sexual assault, and they've been now commoditized. And they often have had hard situations all of their lives. So a lot of times they come to us and they dropped out of school in the 8th grade. So we're having to help build employment opportunity and provide vocational training, or get people linked up to finish out their GED or start college. And then, not to mention all of the effects of trafficking itself, all of the physical effects, dental care, medical, gynecological care, trauma therapy, all of the different things that people need when they've come out of a hard situation. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of resources.
And kudos to you guys for, stepping up to the plate, because it's not an easy task. There's a lot of work to be done, and you nailed it on the head. Most people just say out of sight, out of mind, and ignore the problem, even though it's only going to get worse.
That's right. Yeah. If our communities refuse to become aware of the very real issue, then that means that it's going to happen more, because we are a community that essentially allows it to happen here, that allows traffickers to operate their enterprises in Oklahoma.
The fear was always put into us when we were little kids that we were going to get abducted at a truck stop or at Walmart. If we didn't stay next to our mom and we walked away, that somebody was going to take us. But the realization is it's much deeper than that. And there is way more going on than just that.
I'm so proud to know you. We spend a lot of time dispelling misconceptions. So I think that if we don't understand what trafficking really looks like, then there is no way we can really protect our kids.
Correct.
So knowing that traffickers actually prey upon food insecurity and homelessness and prior sexual violence and trauma, we need to know those things in order to combat trafficking and to keep our kids safe and to keep our family members and community members safe. So yes, it's much more complex. I've actually never worked a situation where somebody was randomly abducted. Instead, it's much more nuanced than that. Traffickers will.
And we were made to think that happened every day at Walmart.
Yeah.
You know, like, no, that's just not the realization.
That's not it. And especially now, like, of course, there were risks before, but when we have things like social media and the internet and all the apps, traffickers have ready access to victims to prey upon. And it's not done with a white kidnapper van. It's done with like a DM, you know?
Yep.
That's what it
over
really
social media.
Yeah. That's how most recruitment and grooming works in trafficking.
Yeah, it's a slow building of trust process.
It often is. Sometimes it doesn't take a long time. And sometimes I've seen traffickers who've put in months and years to recruit and groom a victim because it's going to pay off financially.
What can the average person like myself do to help?
Yeah. So I think that the first step is to find legitimate resources, maybe via our website at the Dragonfly Home, and educate yourself on the reality of trafficking. Consider giving whatever resources you have. That could be monetary resources. We also need volunteers to help us carry out our mission. And then I think that in the greater picture, in our personal circles, I think that it's so important to create safe spaces for kids where we're not shaming, we're not blaming, we're just making sure that we're creating a safe space so that kids can come to us with things that happen to them, with questions that they have. I feel like that's a way that we can easily prevent the crime of trafficking happening.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted you to share your message and share the website and all of the resources where people can go, especially people, ignoring this issue is not going to make it go away. And, you guys are recognized by the state of Oklahoma for what you do. And I feel like it really legitimizes your mission and gets more people behind you. But it's going to take an army of us all to get behind you to help make a real impact.
Yeah, absolutely. We are at Dragonfly. We're a state certified organization. We have to abide by a lot of statutes and codes and different things to make sure that we're providing the highest quality services possible for victims. We do need, everybody has something to give to this. That's the thing. Like everybody has some talent or gift or something to give so that people won't have to live in this dire hopelessness, this exploitation. And none of us want that. Yeah.
I think what you're doing is incredible. And you are a hero to all of us because this is a big problem. And I'm just glad I can help share your message.
Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate you. I guess I should give the website address. Should I? Is that what you were prompting me to do before? Yes. It's www.thedragonflyhome.org. And then our human trafficking hotline, that's 24/7. It is 405-212-3377. And Jay, I appreciate you. You just blew me away with this interview and with your knowledge of trafficking. Most people don't have that. And that means a lot.
Well, I had a couple of weeks to study, and so I try to do my research because I don't want to come across as a complete idiot, even though I don't really know much about it. And so I tried
more than most.
I tried to educate myself as much as I possibly could.
See, success right here. So you should be telling people what to do because it was effective. And then also thank you for sharing the memories.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much, Jay. I appreciate you. It's so good to see you. I'll talk to you soon.
Tell your mom and everybody I said hi.